It's just a basic story of good versus evil. And I think that's the oldest storyline known to man, good versus evil, you know. It starts back in the days of the Bible and Adam and Eve and stuff, and so that's the easiest story to tell.
You gotta, like you said, tell a story. You know what I'm saying? The heel, the face. It's a roller coaster.
It's gonna be a hell of a show tonight. I can tell you that.
This is The Last Rites, the inaugural live event for pro wrestling's finest, formerly known as the Omaha Wrestling Association. Tonight is the organization's debut under new ownership. After a month-long hiatus since the ownership change, these local wrestlers will return to the ring in Glenwood, Iowa. Veteran Austin Storm was the reigning undefeated OWA heavyweight champion.
My father was a professional boxer, and in the days that he was boxing, they shared cards. They would have boxing and wrestling on the same card. So when I was real little, I got to meet wrestlers.
So tonight, we promise to present the PWF Championship belt to the first ever pro wrestling finest champion. You all know who it's going to be, but we're going to save that for later.
Tonight's event is a special show for the PWF. In addition to being their debut, several of the PWF wrestlers have pooled their money to bring Sanjay Dutt, an independent wrestler from the East Coast, to hold a clinic before the show. Tonight represents a turning point in the organization for old and new.
If you're going to take a holistic look at the sport of wrestling through antiquity, from 776 BC when the first Olympics started, and then you come to professional wrestling, which was legitimate. It was the biggest event out there.
Wrestling became a popular event at carnivals, state, and county fairs, leading many regional promoters to crown their own champions in order to draw larger crowds.
You'd see them wrestle for 2-3 hours, and it was a great match, but you'd have to sit there and watch these guys. So essentially what happened was they wanted to cater to the mainstream media, so they wanted to make it more entertaining and be more exciting. So it started to get a little more theatrical. I personally like professional wrestling because you see the elements of drama. You see how they can work a crowd. Gorgeous George did a wonderful job of creating an image of himself. He was the ultimate heel because he went out there and his famous line was, "Get your filthy hands off me." He was, to me, kind of a benchmark of how professional wrestling should be, because he took it to that next level of how drama should be and how you really act and put on a good interview.
Matches became choreographed events designed to capitalize on the spectators' thirst for intense competition. Though rumors circulated that the events were worked, promoters and wrestlers thoroughly denied them. Protecting the illusion became as important as the matches themselves.
A lot of it back then was, it was hush-hush, you know what I mean? Because people really wanted to portray that it was the real deal.
At one time in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, there was still that element, is wrestling real? And you never knew. You never knew if it was real. Down in your heart of hearts, you knew it was fake, or you knew it was entertainment. But there was still that element that there was a legitimate aspect to it. Vince McMahon has really essentially taken that out of the sport. He's letting everyone know this is world wrestling entertainment. This is a pure entertainment. It's a show. It's a movie.
When you're sitting at home, when you're watching TV, when you're watching wrestling on TV, everybody you see is 200, 300 pounds, jacked up, physique. They're good-looking people. The women are good-looking. They got great bodies. They're wearing at practically nothing. They all got big breasts. It's about the look. Everything appeals visually.
I mean, when you go to an independent show, you're going to see the guys work harder because, you know, they want to get to that WWE level.
The WWF's departure from wrestling's more athletic tradition led Maurice Swanger to take action into his own hands, bringing back a form of local entertainment lost from the area for over 3 decades. When he created the Omaha Wrestling Association in the year 2000, he had but one goal in mind for his organization and the city of Omaha.
Just to bring some entertainment. It hasn't been here since 1971. You know, back in the day of Mad Dog Vachon and all that.
The type of negative stereotypes perpetuated by the WWF are exactly the type of image problem the PWF has to overcome. simply through association with professional wrestling.
One thing I would like everybody to do tonight, no cussing, okay? Okay? That's right. Get it out of your system now. Because it looks like there's a lot of kids out there, so just kind of watch the mouths and stuff.
I cannot make no promises.
Go out there and just take care of one another, be safe, okay? No injuries tonight. Not that we ever have any, but let's be cool. Let's be cool. Let's come out happy.
I was in the military and I met, I started working security for WCW, NWA, where they worked center stage. And I worked security there, and I got to meet some of the wrestlers that way. And through that, I met a guy that was a jobber, somebody that they would bring in just to work somebody, more famous for the camera. And his name was Mike Lane. And Mike Lane and I became friends, and Mike started training me. Didn't have a ring back then. He was just a wrestler, and we worked on the grass of his front lawn. And I trained by jumping over trash cans and falling and landing and learning that way. And that's kind of how I got started. And I see a lot of guys come in here with fancy boots and clothes, and I've seen promotions with the best wrestling rings I've ever seen. Nobody can work because, just because you have the equipment doesn't mean that you're a worker, And it also, anybody that has a dollar in their hand can go to a school, and they'll take your money and they'll train you. That doesn't mean you're a worker either,
The relative ease of getting into wrestling today means that not all new recruits have the same level of dedication and determination. Although the PWF operates its own wrestling school, going through school doesn't guarantee that a wrestler will find work.
I was sitting in my room one day, and when I was in high school, like 16, I had all these posters and all this crap all over my room. It was just like a big wrestling shrine. And I remember I was sitting there one day, and I was asking myself, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And as I was looking around, it was pretty obvious to me, really.
Like it's always like, ever since I was little, I've always wanted to do it, but it was just kind of an unrealistic dream, just like anybody wants to be an astronaut or a race car driver or whatever.
A guy by the name of Lance that I went to high school with, he was a grade behind me. He called me up one day and he said, "Hey man, I'm going to Shawn Michaels school to train. Do you want to go with me?" Well, yep, I did, I was the biggest Shawn Michaels fan in the world growing up. That dude was like my hero. And so that decision was pretty obvious.
I was down to a WWF show here in Omaha, and these guys were passing out flyers for a wrestling school. And when I was 17, I decided I wanted to do it, but I was just going to wait till I was out of college to start it. But I figured since they had one this close to where I live, I might as well start now.